My mom always tell me first to breathe, then to smile. When people come to me, they like to talk about their house. And if you looked up Wikipedia, a house is a building that functions like a home. Sometimes they also come to me and talk about their home. And I remember John Denver's Country Road. Do you know Country Road? You want to sing with me? Yeah, let's do it in three. 3, 2, 1. Country road, take me home to a place I belong. We're in Kuching. So a house can be a home. And a home is where you belong. A home is where my personal story begins. We can agree that a house can mean different things to different people. If a house is that which gives you that great experience, great memories, then the experience I get in riding my bike is my home. If a house is that which gives you great awe, great joy at something that you can see, you can touch, you can feel, then the satisfaction I get in doing my work as an architect is my home. As an architect, I try to create experiences. When I ride my bike, I experience what has been created. So you see, I find home in both. I remember the words of John Lennon when he says, as a kid, I had a dream. I wanted to own a bike. And when I had my bike, I was the happiest boy in Liverpool, if not the world. I too was like that. I could ride my bike. Riding my bike has taken me to places far and wide. And I've made postcard moments from it. Now let me ask you this. Have you ever ridden your bike around Gunung Agung in Bali? Have you ever ridden your bike across the width of Peninsular Malaysia, from Perak to Kelantan and Terengganu? Have you ever ridden your bike up Bukit Sumpitan in Kedah, in your bicycle ride from Kuala Lumpur to Thailand? I'm fortunate I have those experiences. You see, when I was younger, I could ride all day. And there were many times that when I ride, I get chased by dogs. And during those moments, I kept thinking, wouldn't it be better if I have more people riding with me? So I started to have group rides, and I started to have a team. And my team soon became a championship-winning team. And I called that team Team Corbusier. You know, nowadays, when you come across things which are curious to you, you Google it up. And people would Google our name, and they would realize that Corbusier is actually a famous architect, Le Corbusier. Perhaps they get more excited about what they read, and perhaps they may even pursue architecture. So that was the secret, you see. I try to promote architecture through cycling. Now you know. And how far did we go with our cycling? Well, we went quite far. When we won in Tour of Borneo, we were the first amateur club in in Malaysia to have done so. And let me share you a secret. If you want to get fast, you want to get better, make sure you have dogs and monkeys chasing you. You'll get fast. It's true. Real story. And perhaps we have been chased by more dogs and monkeys than anyone else. Now, aside from cycling, architecture is my passion. People sometimes call me the cycling architect, which is not very far from the truth. Architecture, I'm fortunate to have done landmark buildings in the city. Some of my works have won awards. Yeah. So you may have seen Tabung Haji Hotel. Yeah, you have? So we won our first award in Bangkok in 2017. And later that same year, in 2017, we were nominated for another award in London, which was at the International Property Award. We had two big names in the finals with us, which was Pan Pacific Hotel in London, and also from North America, we had Trump International Hotel in Vancouver. But by the end of the day, our Puak Kumbu design won. Yeah. And you know what's more interesting about this? The whole design was created in our Kuching studio. And the guys that did this were all local-born Sorokian. I think we should know about this, and it should be promoted, right? Sarawak beats Trump. Well, I remember the words of Jim Rohn, and he says, whatever good things that we build ends up building us. And in cycling, Desmond Tutu jokingly said, give a man a fish and feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and feed him for a lifetime. But teach a man to cycle, he will realize that fishing is boring. Desmond Tutu said that, not me. But my story today will not be complete if I did not tell you a bit about myself. I was born in Kampung Haji Bahabul, which is not too far from here. And if there is a single image that captures your childhood, this would be mine. This is my grandfather's old wooden house. I spent a lot of my childhood here. I remembered one rainy afternoon. I was maybe about 8 years old. It was raining heavily, and we would put buckets on the floor because of the leaking roof. My grandfather would sit next to me, and he would cut rectangular pieces of teeth from an old biscuit container. He's calm because he's been through this many times before. So he would take those pieces of tin, climb up the ladder and into the attic, and plug the leak. And as he was coming down, and I was there helping to steady the ladder for him, he said, "Ree," he said, because that's how he called me, "Ree, this house is old. This house is not perfect, but this is our home." I remembered it just like it was only yesterday, you know. And sometimes I look back to the past, I would cling to those words. I would embrace those emotions because it gave me a sense of comfort. It gave me perspective. That old house, this old house, have protected my family, gave us shelter for many, many years, through many, many storms. And this house is where I, as that 8-year-old, planted the seeds to grow my dreams. And my grandfather would say it over and over again through many stormy days. This house is old, this house is not perfect, but this is our home. And I carried those words into my adulthood. And like any fresh graduate, I came back to Kuching. I started work, and I started from the very bottom. And I ended up in this office, which I thought was very old. It had an interior decor that came from the 80s. And this was in 1995. I thought that I wouldn't last long here. It would just be a temporary move. But I stayed longer. I never left. And that is now my company. I remembered also one afternoon, my boss called me into his room, and over a cup of coffee, we chatted. He shared with me his plans to retire. And I said, okay. And he said, I want you to take over the company. So a few months passed by, and I started to own the company. But from day one, it became clear to me it wasn't going to be all peaches and creams. It wasn't going to be a walk in the park, nor was it going to be a bed of roses. Yes, we had difficult times. The economic uncertainty of our business, the financial frailty of our accounts, the high running overheads that I had inherited, which was beyond my control, pushed us to the edge. Sometimes we had to scrap the barrel, just to get by. And no matter how hard we worked, things didn't change much. And in trying times like this, you look back to the past, just for something, for anything that could help you go through that day. It's not just money that could save us, but it is the courage to weather the storm. So I drew that courage from the lessons that I learned from my grandfather in that old wooden house. You see, my office, my firm, my practice is just like that old wooden house. When it's full of flaws, full of defects, we don't abandon it, we fix it, just like what my grandfather did. We turn it around. It took us almost 2 years to do it. We started to recover, we started to grow, and we thrive. And alhamdulillah, we thrive until now. That reminds me of another story in cycling. I know this 12-year-old boy, and he was the first boy to join my cycling program. The first time he met me, he was this boy with an oversized jersey. He was wearing this helmet that looked more like a turtle shell, and it covered his whole face. And he was using a bike that was a little bit too big for him. His name is Faiz. Now this boy, he had guts. I could see fire in him. And not long after that, he started to beat the older boys. And he had a dream. His dream was to ride for Sarawak in Sukan, Malaysia. In 2016, we had Sukan Malaysia in Kuching. And Faiz then was one of the top boys. So he was ready for this big race. His path to his dream was very clear. Just get into the Sarawak team, and he would have achieved part of his dream. But like any good story, there's not always a happy ending. You see, Faiz's dream was crushed by a flat tire. So Faiz is this quiet boy. He doesn't express himself much. He bottles everything in. So I sat him down, and I said something that I heard from Michael Jordan. And it goes like this. Don't let the chance to fail stop you from doing anything that you enjoy. After that, I sent Faiz over to race in Kota Kinabalu, and that race was his biggest race at that time. It was a national event race. Again, like any good story, there's sometimes a happy ending. Faiz won that race, Yeah, he won. You see, I learned something from him too. Yeah. You see, I learned something from him too. In the face of his biggest loss, he also won his biggest race. Faiz went on. The next year, he won Sukan Sarawak. And in 2018, He finally got his chance to race in Sukan, Malaysia, when he won the selection trial, which he should have won 2 years ago. You see, in cycling, cycling is a tool that teaches. If cycling mirrors life, then we have provided a home for these kids like Faiz to nurture their dreams. I may have been a part in building his dream, but when he overcomes his struggle, it helps me to overcome mine. And I'm reminded of the same word I just told you just now. What Jim Rohn has said, sometimes with the great things that we build, it ends up building us, and how true it is. Now, as an architect, I like to share with you a quote. Okay. The house shelters daydreaming, the house protects the dreamer, and the house allows one to dream. My house allows me to dream. In some of the works that I have done, you will not be able to achieve it if you don't give yourself the freedom to dream. This is our State Archive building, and it is inspired by the Mulu Pinnacles. I'm glad to tell you that this building will start sometime next year. This is one of those buildings that you have to think outside the box, and you may have only one chance to do it, because this kind of opportunity may be once in a lifetime, or maybe once over an entire generation. This is our Tabong Haji Hotel, which you have seen. Actually, we won the design competition in 2012 to design this building. And I show you these buildings because of the words by Frank Gehry. Architecture should speak of its time and place, but yearn for timelessness. You see, if architecture is a house, then that old wooden house have spoken volume to me. If architecture is timeless, then the words of my grandfather will stay with me forever. This house is still there. It's about 150 years old now, but it is home to another family. My grandfather, however, has passed on. In the words of my grandfather, this house is not perfect, but this is our home. Thank you.